How you doing, everybody? Well, I wanted to make this video, and I've been trying to do this for a few days now, but every time I do, I just end up going to another subject or not being able to word it properly. Because it's such an obvious thing. It's the way that we view the world, our perceptions of the world around us and how they affect our behaviors, how they affect our moods. It's something I talk about all the time, the whole mental alchemy thing, but when it really gets to me is when I go out and do something I don't usually do, or something where let's say, my example, I'm going to try to get this simple as possible. I'm at home, let's say I've been watching maybe videos on YouTube, getting a certain good feeling about people in general, that people are good, that the world is good, that people mean well, that people aren't that dumb, that kind of stuff. And then something as simple as taking my son to school in the morning, which every day I drive him to school, and when we're going up the back road to park, I usually park on the side of the road down a ways and then just walk up to the school. But most of the parents don't want to do that. They want to be as close as possible, and there are these 3 little dead-end streets which say no parking from here to the end, but they're basically like a 50-foot little stretch of street that ends at the school. And people park in there not only on the sides but in the center. And there's this one lady who parks there every day in the center, backs in and blocks every single person in, and then leaves her car and goes to the school to get kids. Now every morning when I drive up there, I see people that are backing out and stopping in the middle of the street to wait. Now all these people are just waiting to park in this one little area, even though there are plenty of places around to park. It's the laziness of humanity, and it gets frustrating. But really what gets to me is the fact that people don't seem to be concerned with others around them. And so all it takes is like a 5-minute trip, and I think, God, people are idiots. People are idiots. And I come back home and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm just basing this on a few people that I ran into. And this is just one example among many. Another example might be going to the grocery store and the clerk treats you like crap, or you see somebody treating the clerk like crap, which is more common because they're in a bad mood and so everybody suffers. I used to pump gas in Oregon, and it's a full-service state, so there is no self-pumping gas. So you serve every single customer, and people treat you like shit. So you go to work in a good mood, and the thing is, people don't usually go out to eat in a bad mood. So my wife being a waitress, she might deal with customers, but at least they're eating and they're happy. For me, it was just constant, people irritated on their way to work. People have to get gas. So I got to see the raw side, where people would roll down their window this far and say, check the oil. So I guess my point here really is that I think it's important for us to remember that if we have a view of the world and someone else has a different view, neither one of us is necessarily right or wrong. Sometimes it's a simple matter of, what have you been exposed to lately? If you're the kind of person who has had a rough life and you've always been beaten down and taken advantage of, you're going to see the world as a hostile place. And if you're the kind of person who's had everything handed to you, you might think that the world is a pretty easy and giving place. But for the person who has nothing, to look at the person, say, who's rich, who was born rich, and say, this person doesn't know what it's like to be in pain or to be suffering, I would say that is a mistaken assumption, because I'm sure every person who is born with means eventually comes to terms with the realization that they need to have purpose too, not just have money. So what I'm trying to kind of convey here is the way that we view other people is really based upon our subjective view of how people are. So when a poor person says all rich people are greedy, that's obviously not true. When a rich person says all poor people are lazy, that's obviously not true. But we generalize, we do. So the little things in life can really get to us. We can be exposed to one thing, even something as much as you could be having the most wonderful life and everything could be going just great, and then a parent dies all of a sudden, let's say, and then it totally changes your view of life in general. Maybe you never contemplated mortality. So really all I'm trying to say is that to remember that if if you're having a conversation with someone, or you're listening to someone speak, or merely just reading an article or something, just try to remember that just because a person doesn't have the same view doesn't mean that they don't understand, or that they haven't contemplated. In fact, I've had a lot of people tell me, if a particular view I have, that I'm asleep, that I just haven't looked into it deep enough. But I'll be like, well, actually I looked into it deeper and deeper and found out that maybe it wasn't so true, or maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. So sometimes the people that we think are just ignorant are really people who have actually put a lot of effort forth and decided, I made a decision of how I feel about this. And so I'm not going to let my trip to the school, you know, determine how I feel about people in general. But I could see how if a person lived in the city and all they dealt with was traffic all day, they would assume that everyone was just a shitty driver, that kind of stuff. And just remember that we always point out the one thing that's wrong, you know? In other words, when I'm driving up that street, I don't notice the 30 or 40 cars that are parked properly. I notice the 2 douchebags who are parked illegally or wrong, because it's affecting the group as a whole. So, to try to remember that percentage of people who are actually damaging, you know, and it could be something as simple as somebody hauling ass down the freeway and you think, oh, what an asshole, he's weaving in and out of traffic. Maybe his wife's dying in the passenger seat, you know. Just things that we don't understand what's really going on in another person's mind. We don't understand what kind of processes are going. So I think if we remember that, try to remember that, and try to find the common ground between people, then we won't find ourselves pointing the finger and becoming, I guess, raw or, I don't know, distant from society. Gotta get our feet wet. Anyway, I guess that's the best I could do. Take care.